everyone, and welcome to my Macbeth Retellings reading vlog. At time of filming, I am one day out from seeing David Tennant and Cush Jumbo perform Macbeth in the West End, and I am so ridiculously excited because I have never seen a Shakespeare play performed live in a theatre before now. I have seen live streams done, so I saw Benedict Cumberbatch's Hamlet. I've also seen A Winter's Tale, which starred Judi Dench. I saw one other that I've forgotten the name of, but I definitely saw another one. And then I've also seen David Tennant's Much Ado About Nothing that he did with Catherine Tate. I saw the pro shot of that, and I have also seen like a couple of other adaptations that were made for TV, like David Tennant's Hamlet, and then also the entire Hollow Crown series that was done for the BBC. But I have never seen a Shakespeare play performed live before now. I've studied Shakespeare plays at like school and uni, but I've never actually seen one live before, and because I'm now going to be seeing one for the first time, and I'm going to be seeing David Tennant, who is one of my favourite actors who I've loved since I was about 12 years old, maybe about 10, 11? I was a kid anyway, ever since I was a kid. I decided I wanted to make a reading vlog about this, and specifically I wanted to make a reading vlog where I read Macbeth Retellings, because that is the show I'm going to be seeing. So that is what this vlog is going to be. I'm going to be reading Macbeth Retellings, telling you what I think about them, and this kind of thing. I've got three things I'm going to be reading. The first one is a graphic novel, and it is just a straight up Macbeth graphic novel adaptation, because I figured I should probably read some kind of version of Macbeth that is very much pure to the play before I go and see the play, just so I have a better understanding of what's going on, because I sometimes find it a little bit hard to translate Shakespeare into like modern day language, I guess you could say. So I'm going to be reading that first to familiarise myself with the play and everything else. As for the novels, I then have Weird Sisters by Terry Pratchett. This is more of a Macbeth come Hamlet retelling in a lot of ways, but it is essentially a story that is following the witches of the Discworld, specifically Granny Weatherwax and her friends, as they get caught up in royal politics and this kind of thing. And there is a lot of references to obviously Macbeth with the three witches, Hamlet, all of this kind of thing in here, so I figured I'd read it for this vlog, even though it is a reread, because I really enjoyed it the first time around and I wanted to give it a reread. And then the second one I have is Mona Awad's All's Well, which is all about a woman who suffers with chronic pain, and her kind of faculty at her university are putting on the play Macbeth, and then I think three actual witches get involved and start manipulating things, if I remember rightly, and that is more of a traditional Macbeth retelling from what I can tell that really kind of caught my eye. So those are the three I'm going to be reading. I'm going to be starting with the Macbeth graphic novel, so let's get reading and seeing what I think about all of these things before I go and see Macbeth tomorrow. I've now just finished the graphic novel, and that was a really good way to sort of introduce myself to Macbeth, because I knew a little bit about it, because I obviously knew like the classic three witches thing, and I knew about killing the king, all of this kind of thing. I knew that stuff about Macbeth, but I didn't really know the actual storyline or the events of the play, to be honest. And I wanted to read this first just so I sort of familiarised myself with the play, what was going to happen, this kind of thing, because sometimes I kind of struggle with iambic pentameter and how Shakespeare wrote his plays, especially when reading them physically. I sometimes also struggle with it when I'm physically watching it. It depends on the play and how it's done, everything else, but I do sometimes struggle with it. So I did want to familiarise myself with the play first, and this graphic novel was a really great way to do it, because it was actually written for primary school children, so that's up to the age of 11 in England. So it's not done in the iambic pentameter, it's done in more sort of normal modern sentences, I guess you could call it. And it did kind of like speed up the plot of the play and kind of went through things rather quickly, but I do appreciate that though, because it still gave me that basic idea of what happens in the play and what's going to happen, all of this kind of thing. I will say it did not skip out on some of the most important bits. We did get scenes like this where you get the like bubble toil and trouble bit and all of this kind of thing, which is great because obviously those are the most famous lines in the play. And there's a couple of other bits where I read and went, that's definitely going to be one of the famous lines of the play that that you absolutely do not cut out in any adaptation whatsoever. So it was nice to have that in there as well, and to have those references without it being completely in the original language the play was written in, just for my personal benefit. I know it will not be the same for everybody, it's just I found that really, really useful. It also in here has a little bit of a guide to how the plays were staged and where they were staged and this kind of thing, and what was going on around that time in actual history and what Shakespeare changed and everything. So if you are completely brand new to Macbeth and you want a little bit of an idea of what was happening around that time and just having a slightly easier bit of access to the play before you either read it or watch it or whatever, this is definitely a good one to go for. I think there's also a couple of other ones as well that they've done. I think they've done like Hamlet and a few others, so if you do have any of those that you also want to check out, I'd definitely recommend them because the artwork is good, you get those references, it's still simplified but without completely dumbing it down, which I really, really appreciated. And generally, I had a good time with it, and I'm giving it 4 stars. Now, I don't really have any time to start another book or anything else. It's getting a bit late, but tomorrow I will be starting Weird Sisters. Now, this is the reread for this vlog because I read this 2-3 years ago now, I think it was, and really, really enjoyed it the first time round, and now I'm really excited to read it again, at this time with more context, because I'll have hopefully have seen the play, or at the very least I will have the graphic novel adaptation in my head, so I'll hopefully see more of the inspiration and maybe the references throughout this book that I did not get the first time round. So very, very excited for that, and also because tomorrow is the day I go and see the play, and actually at time of filming, in 24 hours, I will be on the train nearing London, so very excited for that. And yeah, I will pick this up tomorrow when I pick up Weird Sisters. I am literally a singular page in, and not even that, I'm literally just finishing this paragraph here, which is the opening paragraph, and we've already set the scene. We've got the Macbeth reference in here with the fact that you've got wind howling, thunder, like, and lightning happening, all this kind of thing, and you've got 3 figures around a cauldron, and it says, as the cauldron bubbled, an eldritch voice shrieked, "When shall we 3 meet again?" There was a pause. Finally, another voice said, in far more ordinary tones, "Well, I can do next Tuesday." And I love that so much because obviously you've got this big Macbeth bit, you know, it's all the big dramatic thunder, lightning, 3 figures hunched around a cauldron that's bubbling all over the place, people are shrieking, all of this kind of thing. And then you get that Pratchett humour in there that turns it completely on its head and goes, well, I can do next Tuesday, and just brings it back down to earth again. And I love that so much about Terry Pratchett's writing. You can have these big dramatic moments, all of this kind of thing, and then it will turn it on its head and have like such a good one-liner that brings it straight back down to earth again in pure Discworld Pratchettness. I love it. I'm going to try and not do this the whole way through, by the way, and just talk about how much I love Terry Pratchett. I am going to talk about how I think they do the like the Macbeth references, all of this kind of thing. I just wanted to point that out first though, because I do absolutely love that as an opening bit. I'm now up to page 19, and what I absolutely love about this is how it's weaving Macbeth and Hamlet together, and how it's weaving it into the Discworld as well. So you've got, obviously, a king has been murdered, like it does in like Hamlet and Macbeth actually, and death has been woven into this by talking to the ghost of the king who's been murdered, and him saying like, look, you're going to be a ghost now, I'm not reaping you, you have a separate purpose and everything else. And the guy's going, what do you mean I've got a separate purpose? What do you mean I'm stuck here? What do you mean I'm a ghost? And Death is going, yeah, well, good luck, this kind of thing. And so it's woven into the Discworld that way. And then you've also got the king's son, who is only 2 years old, has been kidnapped and now has been given to Granny Weatherwax and Nanny Og and Magrat, who are the 3 witches from the beginning of the book. And you've got little bits like this, and it's sort of taking these Discworld characters that you know and love if you've read more Discworld, and then weaving them into these stories. And even though I'm only 19 pages in, I remember how well that was done the first time around I read this, and I'm sure I'm going to feel the same way this time around. I genuinely think it is done so well, and I love how Terry Pratchett has done it, because it can't be easy to like combine 2 Shakespeare plays. To be fair, I think Macbeth and Hamlet would probably be the best 2 to maybe like collide with each other, combine with each other, I mean, with my very little Shakespeare knowledge. I think they're really good to like mesh together. But how he is then weaving that into the Discworld without sort of taking away from the original Shakespeare plays or lessening the Discworld for new readers, all of this kind of thing, I am loving how he is doing that. I am now home from Macbeth and I had the greatest time last night watching this play. This was incredible. I absolutely loved the show itself and how stripped back it was with everything being in black, white and grey. I think that really sort of worked really well. I loved how there wasn't really that many props on stage either, or anything else to sort of like build up the atmosphere or anything else. It was done entirely through the actors, which is incredibly difficult, but I think it was done really well. There was also very minimal props. The props was just essentially the crown and a couple of swords and a couple of daggers, and there wasn't really any other sort of props involved either. It was entirely done through the actors, which was done so well. I also love the use of headphones throughout here because as an audience you are all wearing headphones, and that is how you hear the witches. The witches do not appear on stage at all. Instead, what you're doing is hearing them talk through these headphones the whole time, and I think that was done so well. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the use of music throughout here as well, and the staging was absolutely gorgeous because even though it was very stripped back and essentially you just had a slightly like raised bit of the stage that they were using, and then also the back of the stage had this sort of like glass sort of wall behind it where the orchestra was and a few other characters for certain scenes, and how they used that glass wall and those actors in that space was really interesting. I loved all of that. I really enjoyed the storyline as well. I will say that I am very glad that I used a graphic novel version of Macbeth to read first before I went to see this, because I do think I would have been a little bit confused by the like language at points, because like I've said before, I'm not very good at like translating Shakespeare's language in my head, and I think I would have been a little bit lost with the no man born of woman and the like moving forest scenes. I think those would have really confused me, as well as like Macbeth seeing the ghosts of the people he's killed. I think that would have been very confusing for me if I hadn't of, you know, like read that graphic novel first, just because it gave me a lot more context to what was going to happen. So I'm really glad I did that. But overall this play was done so well. I really loved, like I said, the stripped back nature of it, so you were entirely like relying on the actors to bring the story across, and I think they did that absolutely brilliantly. And I also just love like the darkness of it and everything else. This is how it opens with Macbeth cleaning blood off himself after a battle before the witches come along, and then everybody else is dressed in black, whites and greys, which I think was done like really nicely as well. I loved the costuming on this. It was so simple yet so effective, and overall I really loved this play. And if I could just have a minute to fangirl, I was that close to David Tennant. It was like, that was very exciting to me, because if you don't know, I've been a fan of David Tennant ever since I saw him face a Jadoon platoon upon the moon. That was the first episode of Doctor Who I ever watched. I caught it just because it was on TV at the time, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And then I obviously went back, watched 9, watched David's series with Rose as well, and obviously the rest of his time on Doctor Who, and I have been a massive David Tennant fan ever since then. Essentially, I've watched him in nearly everything he's done. I've seen him in like Deadwater Fell. I've seen him in like Bad Samaritan, Fright Night, Jessica Jones. I've seen him do like all sorts of things. I've seen him do like the true crime of like Des. I've seen him do Shakespeare now. I've seen him do Casanova. I was literally watching Casanova like nearly exactly a year ago at time of filming. I watched it for the first time. I was in a hotel in Newcastle and we found it, so we watched it. So I've seen him in that. I've seen him in basically everything he's ever done. I absolutely adore David Tennant, and I have done since I was 10 years old. I always say that the day my childhood died was the day he said, I don't want to go. And I still stand by that is the day my childhood died. So yeah, I've been a David Tennant fan for a while, over half my life now. Yeah, he is the actor who's probably made me cry the most out of any actor I've ever seen in anything, and I've followed his career for the longest out of any actor I've ever followed, apart from maybe Michael Sheen, but I haven't seen him in as many things. But yeah, I am a massive fan of David Tennant. I have loved him for years and years, but I've never managed to see him live. I've seen him at the Good Omens premiere, but I was very far back, but this time I was really close. I was literally second row, which was incredible, and seeing him perform was absolutely mind-blowing. Like, I knew the man was a good actor, but seeing him in his element performing Shakespeare was just next level incredible. I loved that so much. And then me and Emma actually stood at stage door as well, and while mine obviously didn't get signed because we were like 4 people deep, and mine program unfortunately did not get like grabbed to the front for him to sign. Emma's actually did. Emma was incredibly lucky on that one, but you know, sure, us problems. Mine did not get like sent to the front. I still saw him really close up and everything else, as you can see by the clip I'm either putting here or here, but I still saw him that close up and everything else, and I heard him with my own ears instead of through speakers or headphones or anything else, and that was just absolute dreams come true. It was an absolute dream come true to see him live, to say the least. Like, absolute 100% dream come true. I adored it so much. I adore him so much, and I just have to quickly thank Emma for all of this, because Emma had a spare ticket. I'll leave a link to them down below, but they had a spare ticket because my show was originally cancelled due to illness, and I was like, all right, okay, I'm not going to be able to go and see this. I'm just going to have to wait for it to come out in the cinema, which was absolutely fine. I was absolutely fine with that, because obviously people get ill, shows get cancelled, it's absolutely fine. I was a little bit disappointed, but obviously I was, because I wanted to go and see it, but I was fine with it, because obviously cast get ill, everything else. And then Emma said, no, I actually have a spare ticket, do you want it? And I was like, yes please, I would love to go and see this. So thank you so much to Emma for giving me your spare ticket. It meant the absolute world to me to see this, and then to do my first stage door. Even if my program didn't get signed or anything else, I still saw him in the flesh right in front of me. Like, 3 people in front of me was David Tennant. I could see him with my own eyes, and then see him like from second row in a theatre in his element, playing Macbeth, being in a Shakespeare play, was absolutely incredible. So thank you so much, Emma, for that. I will be forever grateful to you for letting me have that spare ticket. I mean, that was absolutely incredible. It meant the absolute world to me. So yeah, that was such a good night. It was such a good night. I'm still remembering bits like now, and I'm just in awe, to be honest. I'm absolutely in awe of the entire thing. And then I should also quickly mention what I read of Weird Sisters yesterday. So I obviously carried on reading this on the train on the way, and I really enjoyed what I read. I'm up to page 67, so it's taking me a little bit of time to read this, but that's absolutely fine. I want to savour this one because it is a Terry Pratchett book, but I am loving how he is weaving together bits of Macbeth and bits of Hamlet, because you've got those elements weaving through here, and then he's also weaving through like theatre references and stuff, because without giving away too many spoilers, there is a heavy theatre sort of section to this with one of the characters, which I am really enjoying as well. There's been a couple of references to a couple of other Shakespeare plays, and then also to Cats, and also Starlight Express, the Andrew Lloyd Webber one that's on roller skates. He's had references to that in here as well, which is incredible. And I'm loving how he's weaving these Shakespeare and theatre references into the world of the Discworld, which cannot have been easy. Like, that could not have been easy whatsoever, but he is doing it so well. There's been a couple of other references in here, like by the pricking of my thumbs and things like this, and I am just generally really enjoying this book once again. I mean, Terry Pratchett was a genius. That's all I've got, is Terry Pratchett was a genius, and I am loving seeing how he is working these Shakespeare bits into this book as well. And I should also mention that I'm using a David Tennant bookmark, because of course I am, to read this book, and I also transported it in my Weeping Angel book sleeve in my TARDIS backpack, because when I go see a doctor in something, I'm gonna go Whovian. Even if it's subtle and nobody else sees it, I'm gonna know it's there, and that's just who I am as a person. So yeah, I really enjoyed what I read last night. I'm loving picking up on all of the references, all of this kind of thing, and now I'm going to get back to reading it and updating you when I've read a little bit more. This takes place over multiple years, because obviously the young boy has to grow up and everything else, so you are seeing a lot of what the witches involved, so Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Og and Magrat are all doing in the preceding years, and what's going on and everything else. And I am really loving their conversations and how they they approach witchery and things like this, because obviously Granny Weatherwax is very sort of traditional in terms of how witches work and everything else, whereas Margaret is very brand new to this and she's more like reading grimoires and things like this, whereas Nanny Og is generally doing whatever the hell Nanny Og wants, and I absolutely love that. And what I will say is the whole time I'm reading this, I'm imagining Nanny Og played by Miriam Margolyes. I think she would make the most perfect Nanny Og you have ever seen, because she's just got the Nanny Og energy in a lot of ways, and I just feel like she would absolutely smash that role. In terms of Granny Weatherwax, I would have said someone like Maggie Smith. I think she would have made an absolutely fantastic Granny Weatherwax. I'm not entirely sure about Margaret at the moment, but definitely with those two witches, I do have those two actresses in my head whenever I'm reading it, and I am just really loving just seeing what the witches are up to and seeing them being portrayed as not an evil set of witches. Obviously the king does view witches as evil and he's trying to get them out and all of this kind of thing, but everybody else just completely respects the witches because they know what the witches are like, they know what the witches do, everything else, and they really respect them. So it's really fun to see that kind of take on them in this type of story, instead of just making them flat out evil, because none of the witches, as far as I know in the Discworld, are actually evil or anything else. They're just witches who are going about their days, doing whatever they need to do, this kind of thing, and occasionally just getting caught up in the general Discworld madness that happens. So yeah, I am still really enjoying this. I am now on page 96, and I am, like I said, really enjoying this. I'm really loving seeing everything from the witches' point of view and seeing them being portrayed as not evil characters or anything else, just witches who happen to be caught up in the story. It's been several days since I last updated you, but I have now just finished Weird Sisters, and oh my god, did I love this book all over again. I feel like watching Macbeth meant that I got a lot more references from this book, which was absolutely fantastic. So obviously the first time I read this, I did not get all of the Macbeth references, so it was great to finally get all of those. I really enjoyed as well all of the other theatre references we got in here, because there was a moment, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but he one of the characters who is a writer, and specifically a playwriter, is having like these thoughts of various different plays that we know and love, and they're very subtly referenced. So you get one about it's clearly, I can't remember the exact line, but it's something to do with cats, and then also another one for Starlight Express. There is also references to The Tempest in here. There's a whole load of other theatre references, which were all so much fun. I also just generally really enjoyed how Terry Pratchett wove the idea of a play into this, so very much the play was the thing. So I really liked that element of it. I really liked how it did combine obviously Hamlet and Macbeth. I really loved how he wove the witches through here as well, and them being like this really sort of mismatched coven in a lot of ways, and seeing how they were like, we do not meddle in the affairs of kings, but we're going to meddle this time because it needs to be meddled with. That was all absolutely fantastic, and I just generally really love this book. If you want a really out-the-box retelling focusing on the witches of Macbeth, this is definitely a fantastic book to go for, because it is so much fun, and I'm giving it 4 stars all over again. But now, unfortunately, I would be starting All's Well by Mona Awad, but unfortunately my library hold is running out and I do not have time to read it before I need to upload this video, and before that hold runs out, so I will not be reading that book. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is reading this Macbeth retelling that is a horror slant graphic novel version of the play, which really intrigued me. It was on my list for potential retellings to read, but because of time constraints and everything, I'm going to be reading this one instead. So let's get reading it. I'm only a couple of pages into this, but my god, the creepy nature is already in this, and it's definitely got that horror vibe. I am really liking as well the design of the witches. So you've got this one where you can see the rib cage, you've got the blindfolded child, the one with the red eyes. Obviously there's a gas mask involved as well, which is rather creepy because it's just giving me Doctor Who vibes with the "Are you my mummy?" which will always creep me out. But all of this is just looking really, really cool. I'm really loving the colour palette of this with the blacks, the whites and the greys and the reds. I think it's really, really effective, and I'm definitely already getting that creepy, slightly horror-y vibe that I absolutely love. This is following the play really, really closely, but it's also doing it in more sort of modern language like the original tale I read was doing as well. But it is keeping a lot of the original phrases in there with like the foul is fair line, the witch's prophecy, all the rest of it is very much like lifted from Shakespeare while still being slightly modernised. You can still tell exactly which line it's meant to be, but you do get like a lot of the phrasing in there, which I find really, really good. I will say as well that this isn't giving me proper horror vibes yet, but I am only 27 pages in. I'm only a quarter of the way through, but I will say the artwork is definitely the creepiest thing about this so far, because obviously you just saw the witches there in the last clip, but now we've also seen what Lady Macbeth is seeing in the mirror when she has found out that about this prophecy, and that the prophecy is that Macbeth shall be king. So you can really see it in this artwork. It is really, really creepy, and I really like it. I will say the artwork, like I said, is giving the creepy factor more than the actual story, but I'm still absolutely loving this so far. And now I've just finished that Macbeth comic, and this was a pretty good one. I will say that it did definitely lean more into the horror elements in the later part of the book, in the second and third act. There was a lot more in terms of the witches and what's inspiring the witches to do what they're doing. You also got some more sort of like, not supernatural creatures, but like demonic creatures were mentioned a few times, this kind of thing. So there was that sort of horror supernatural element to it, but I do wish that this had been longer so we could go more into those types of creatures, because this used the supernatural type characters to bring in a new take on the forest moving in the final battle, and I would have loved to have seen more of that. The same with what the witches were doing and why they were doing what they're doing and their origins. I would have liked to have seen that a little bit more, because it didn't really go into that as much as I wanted it to, and I just generally wanted this to be longer, because while this kept to Macbeth the story, it kind of shortened it a bit and then didn't really go into those horror elements like I really, really wanted it to. Don't get me wrong though, this was an incredible comic. I definitely really, really enjoyed this take on Macbeth, and making it more creepy and more supernatural, because I think as a play this is one that can really lean into that. It's this one and Hamlet, as far as I know, can really lean into that. I do think they do lend themselves to more horror retellings than maybe some of Shakespeare's other plays, but I do think this could have gone maybe a little bit further with that. In saying that though, it was still a really, really good read. If you are a fan of Macbeth or Shakespeare in general and horror books, I definitely think this is a really fun one to read, because it has those elements. And overall, I'm giving this a 3.5 to 4 stars. I'm not quite sure yet. I'll have to have a longer think about it, but it's definitely in that kind of range. And that is absolutely everything I was going to be reading for this reading vlog. So out of the books I read, the first Macbeth comic was absolutely fantastic for new readers to Macbeth, or just new Shakespeare readers, I'd say, because it gives you that really nice overview of what the play is about and giving you the story of Macbeth without it being in Shakespeare like language, which I can find it can be very, very difficult to translate, especially if you are brand new to Shakespeare. So I definitely think that is a really, really good one to read if you are completely brand new to Macbeth or any other Shakespeare play or Shakespeare in general. I definitely would not recommend it for people who know Macbeth and Shakespeare in general really, really well, because it won't give you anything new or anything else. It will just give you that brief overview. But if you are brand new to Macbeth and Shakespeare, I definitely recommend checking it out. With Weird Sisters by Terry Pratchett, I would recommend this to Shakespeare fans and non-Shakespeare fans alike, because if you are a Shakespeare fan, you are going to see so many references throughout here, and you're going to see where the ideas came from, and you're going to really enjoy seeing how Terry Pratchett weaves Macbeth and Hamlet into the Discworld. It is absolutely fantastically done, and I know I am biased here, but I highly, highly recommend this. And if you are not a Shakespeare fan, I still think this is a really good one to read, just because even though it is a retelling of sorts of Macbeth and Hamlet, it's still very much a Discworld book. It's still very much a fun fantasy book, and while you will not get all of the references, the enjoyment of the book will not be taken away if you do not get those references and if they go straight over your head. I know I really enjoyed this book the first time I read this, when I only knew like the basics of Hamlet at that time. Everything else went completely over my head, but I still really enjoyed reading this, and I definitely think it's a good one for fantasy fans in general. And finally, Macbeth, A Tale of Horror is also a fantastic read, especially if you are a horror fan, because it definitely has those vibes. Like I said, it doesn't go into them as fully as I wanted it to. It was still a really satisfying read, and definitely gave it a new, fresh take on the tale of Macbeth that I highly recommend. And as for David Tennant's Macbeth itself, I really enjoyed myself. I will again put my hands up and say I am very biased because I am a big David Tennant fan, but I still found a lot of enjoyment in this play. I thought it was staged really well. I thought the play itself was done really well. The performances were absolutely fantastic. I'm hoping it's going to be winning awards for the acting as well as the costuming and everything else, because I thought it was done really well, and I highly recommend it when it comes out in the cinema next February, because I think it is something that is really enjoyable and well worth a watch. And that is where I'm going to be leaving this reading vlog, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what your favourite Shakespeare play is. I'd love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a witch emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics. Or if books are more your thing, I'll also leave a link as well down below to my bookish Etsy store if you want to treat yourself to something bookish this holiday season. Or if you just want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. Until next time everyone, bye!